Welcome to an introduction to the impact industry token. So what we see here is a map of the world and the spectrum of incredible influence that our one species, our humanity, has on the entire planet. So I wanted to start by just doing a little bit of an introduction to what impact really means, and that's to introduce the idea of the Anthropocene.
This is the story of how one species changed a planet. The latest chapter of our story begins in England 250 years ago. Fueled by coal, then oil, several brilliant inventions appeared. They ignited the Industrial Revolution, which spread like wildfire through Europe, North America, Japan, then elsewhere. The great railways, then cars and highways, connected people across the globe. Medical discoveries saved millions of lives. New artificial fertilizers meant we could feed more people. Population rose rapidly. But this was nothing compared with what was to come. The 1950s marked the beginning of the Great Acceleration. Globalization, marketing, tourism, and huge investments helped fuel enormous growth. People swarmed to cities, which became even more powerful engines of creativity. In a single lifetime, the well-being of millions has improved beyond measure. Health, wealth, security, longevity, never have so many had so much. Yet 1 billion are malnourished. In a single lifetime, we have grown into a phenomenal global force. We move more sediment and rock annually than all natural processes, such as erosion and rivers. We manage 3/4 of all land outside the ice sheets. Greenhouse gas levels this high have not been seen for over 1 million years. Temperatures are increasing. We have made a hole in the ozone layer. We are losing biodiversity. Many of the world's deltas are sinking due to damming, mining, and other causes. Sea level is rising. Ocean acidification is a real threat. We are altering Earth's natural cycles. We have entered the Anthropocene, a new geological epoch dominated by humanity. This relentless pressure on our planet risks unprecedented destabilization. But our creativity, energy, and industry offer hope. We have shaped our past. We are shaping our present. We can shape our future. You and I are part of this story. We are the first generation to realize this new responsibility. As the population grows to 9 billion, we must find a safe operating space for humanity, for the sake of future generations. Welcome to the Anthropocene.
Welcome to the Anthropocene. The Anthropocene defines Earth's most recent geological time period as being human-influenced or anthropogenic, based on overwhelming evidence that atmospheric, geologic, hydrologic, biospheric, and other Earth system processes are now altered by humans. So here we have a picture of the distribution of impact that humans have had on our planet based on sort of stresses related to human settlement, agriculture, transportation, mining, energy production, and infrastructure. So to start to change our spaceship planet Earth into a functioning and sustainable operating system, we need to start measuring our impacts. And as we know, what gets measured gets done and improved upon. So the way we can break down impact is in 3 areas: social impact, environmental impact, and economic impact. So social impact can be measured through demographics over time. So we can see the reduction in child mortality, the life expectancy increase, greater levels of social inclusion, whether it's based on sexual orientation or gender or nationality or race. We can see education, and we can see improvements or decreases in health over time. Economic impact. So obviously this is measured by the almighty dollar, and generally nations will measure the health of a country based on its gross domestic product, or GDP, and whether that is increasing or in a recessionary period where it's decreasing. And where it's decreasing, that means there's decreased flow of money. And when there's decreased flow of money, then there's less economic activity. So there's less people working and less activity generally, less innovation. And the other role of a national economy is to create price stability. That is to manage inflation over time. And then we have environmental impacts. And the principal measurement of environmental impact at the moment is CO2 emissions. So I've got CO2e, because that stands for equivalent. So carbon dioxide as a molecule captures heat in our environment. And as we've increased the amount of carbon dioxide in our environment, we've begun to destabilize our climate. The other measure of environmental impact is biomass. So that is the total amount of organic, that is hydrocarbon material on the planet, because it's biomass that sequesters that carbon or absorbs that carbon. And then biodiversity. So how diverse is all life on Earth? So as we know, what measured gets done and approved upon. Now, the World Economic Forum in 2020, every year they publish a global risk report, and they look at all a range of risks across the world, all the different categories of risk, and they look at it in terms of likelihood, and they look at it in terms of impact. And for the first time ever, first time in the World Economic Forum's history, environmental risks comprise the top 5 risks by likelihood and are at the top of the scale in terms of impact. So here's that scale that they've created. So we have likelihood on the x-axis and we have impact on the y-axis. So we're seeing an increasing situation of a high degree of likelihood that there'll be climate action failure, and then a high degree of impact. And so those 5 factors are climate action failure, biodiversity loss, and we know, and it's been widely published, we're now in the 6th great extinction. And as we understand the depth of our responsibility, being in the anthropogenic era, that we humans are responsible for the health of all life on Earth. So when we look at environmental impact, and I wanted to focus on environmental impact because as we learned from Davos, this is the single largest impact right now. There's three things I'd like to share with you that I think are important to understand why this is important, and it gives you a context to talk about it with others. First is the Holocene. Second is the carbon cycle. The third is this novel idea called the biotic pump. So the Holocene is a period of climatic stability over the past 12,000 years. And this stability has been crucial for the development of modern civilization. A stable climate enables humans to pursue agriculture, domesticate animals, settle down, develop culture, social media, and selfie sticks, and all the other things that we have to thank for a stable climate. So if we look at the history over the past 50,000 years, you can see this incredible variability in climate, in temperature over time. And then we've got this very beautiful and incredibly rare period we're calling the Holocene, where there's very little variation in temperature. And it's this small variability in temperature that our entire human civilization has depended upon to thrive. And during the same period, as we saw in the opening video, we have been increasing the emissions of carbon dioxide and decreasing our ability to sequester that carbon dioxide such that the carbon cycle is completely out of balance. So that's to say that there's more carbon dioxide in our atmosphere than we've seen for over 1 million years. And naturally, this is causing significant climate instability, which we've been hearing about since the inconvenient truth that Al Gore brought to the world back in 2004. The carbon cycle, it's how the Earth breathes. So you can see here in this very simple diagram, we've got emissions of carbon dioxide that comes from trees and organic materials that break down over time and releases their carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and through the emissions that are being produced by humanity through the burning of fossil fuels. So fossil fuels have been captured over tens or hundreds of millions of years to produce a very useful energy resource. But in the last 200 years, we've burned hundreds of billions of tons of fossil fuels and hundreds of millions of years worth of captured energy. And we've released that into the atmosphere. And at the same time, so we've been decreasing our ability to sequester that carbon from the atmosphere. So of course, as a tree grows, it builds its body out of carbon, and that's how it absorbs the carbon from the atmosphere. And as we decrease our ability to absorb that carbon, and we continue to increase our emissions, we've created a carbon cycle that's out of balance. So to put that into context, we can see here the total carbon dioxide emissions over time. And since the 1950s, there's been this outrageous, dramatic increase in the emissions of carbon dioxide as our civilization has thrived through access to energy. We are now releasing over 35 billion tons of carbon dioxide per year into the atmosphere. And concurrently, as much as 80% of the world's forests have been destroyed or irreparably degraded. So whilst we're releasing more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, we've reduced our ability to sequester that. Now, the third idea I wanted to introduce, that's quite novel, is the biotic pump. And the principle of the biotic pump, it's a process in which natural forests create and control ocean to land winds, bringing moisture to all terrestrial life. So what you see, if you, to explain it simply, if you look at a lake, you see a single evaporation surface. If you look from the top down at a tree that covers the same area as that lake, you see hundreds or possibly thousands of evaporation surfaces. So because of that, trees, what's called transpiration, where they release moisture into the atmosphere, and by doing so, they create low pressure systems. And as they create those low pressure systems, high pressure systems are attracted to that area. So in other words, forests produce rain, and forests produce the circulation of air across our entire planet. So this is an example of, as you can see, all this this beautiful mist that's rising off the forest, and it has an incredibly cooling effect on both the planet and the environment. So typically half of all the energy from the sun that hits the Earth's land goes into evaporating water rather than heating. Forests turn the water stored in their vegetation and in the soil around their roots into water vapor by harnessing that sun's energy. So inversely, when we have deforestation, we can see here in the case of Borneo, which is the third largest island in the world, compared to the 1950s, we've significantly reduced the amount of forest there. And the impact of that has been Borneo's annual rainfall is now 880 millimeters or 34.6 inches less than it was in the 1950s, which is equivalent to all the rain that falls in the Netherlands through the entire year. So Borneo's precipitation has fallen by around 20% in less than 60 years. And the destruction of rainforests in Borneo and elsewhere leads to a twin-headed climatological monster, which is decreased rainfall and rising temperatures. So why is this important? It doesn't just affect Borneo. It affects all the surrounding territories in the world. So there's this notion called flying rivers. And what we discovered is that the Amazon rainforest, for instance, provides 70% of the rain for Southeast and South America. So what you have is these clouds, which they're calling flying rivers, carry rainfall to that area. So what happens, even though this is thousands of kilometers away, as we decrease the density of forest in the Amazon, that's going to have impacts in Argentina. Decreasing forests across Siberia, it's going to have impacts on rainfall in China. So we really are in a fully interconnected environmental system. So the flying river, as I explained, is a movement of large quantities of water vapor transported in the atmosphere from dense biomass clusters to other parts of the world. So to tackle all these challenges, and of course, environment isn't the only challenge, the United Nations developed the SDGs, or Sustainable Development Goals. So these are no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic conditions, industry innovation and infrastructure, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, climate action, life below water, life on land, peace, justice, and strong institutions, and partnerships for these goals. What we can see from these, and it's important to point out that this is a human-centric view of the world, where our responsibility extends to actually all life on Earth. So companies have discovered this, and they've cooked up this lovely idea called ESG, or environmental and social governance. So it's this idea that we can design a business where we can continue to increase our profits and do the right thing by the environment and to improve life on Earth for our fellow human beings. So ESG is broken into these areas: environmental, so it's climate change strategy, biodiversity, water efficiency, energy efficiency, carbon intensity, environmental management systems. So social impacts: equality, equal opportunities, freedom of association, health and safety, human rights, customer and products responsibility, and the reduction of child labour. And governance covers business ethics, compliance, board independence, executive compensation, shareholder democracy. So in other words, that means fairness. Purpose is not the sole pursuit of profits, but the animating force for achieving them. That's a quote by Larry Fink. And Larry Fink is quite an important character because he runs the single largest wealth management firm in the world. So Larry Fink claims that climate change will cause a transformative reallocation of capital towards sustainable investment. Awareness is rapidly changing, and I believe we are on the edge of a fundamental reshaping of finance. So BlackRock, which is the company he manages, managing over $9 trillion worth of assets, will immediately stop investing in companies that present high sustainability-related risk. Climate change risk, Fink states, is almost invariably the top issue that clients around the world raise when wondering how to make their investments more sustainable. So these statements have put every single business in the world on notice that the essential function of a corporation is to have a purpose and to drive a positive impact in the world that they operate. So it's healthy to have a look at how investment works and what the expectations are of that investment. So we've got conventional investing, which seeks a market rate and risk-adjusted financial returns. We have responsible investing, which seeks to mitigate environmental, social, and governance risks. So that's all companies now are looking for some form of responsible investing because it's their obligation, it's the expectation from their investors. And there's sustainable investing, which is a more dedicated pursuit of ESG opportunities. There's impact investing, which is to contribute to measurable, targeted impact solutions. And there's catalytic capital. That's to fill the capital gaps for impact enterprises and facilitate additional investment. So that's for projects that don't necessarily offer the best financial returns, but do offer the best impact. That's for organizations that are dedicated to a bigger impact. So we look at investor trends, and it's helpful to see, how investor dollars is distributed. This is an older model that gives you a good indication. So we have donors, development banks, philanthropic investors, and private investors. So if you see the IFC, and it's higher now, I would add, so the International Financial Corporation, invests over $140 billion a year. And USAID is their top donor. So we've just talked about impact and all the various ways that you can make impact, the critical importance of getting our biosphere stable for the health and longevity, not just humanity, but all life on Earth. And the question is, why create a token for impact on the unit network? And of course, it's to leverage the power of the blockchain. The blockchain offers a decentralized structure, improves security and privacy, reduce costs, speed of transaction with no intermediaries, visibility and traceability, immutability, and individual control of data. So as we've seen, there are immeasurable number of impact projects, issues and causes that different individuals, businesses and organizations might take an interest in. And each project, whatever the project, does three basic things. They raise money, and they raise and receive money from funders. And then they deploy that money to generate some form of impact. And once they've done that, they need to report back that impact and share with their investors and their supporters the results they've been able to generate. So when you're raising and receiving money from funders, tokenization enables token creators to incentivize their fundraisers with a percentage of tokens and cash they raise. So in other words, anyone who supports the raising of funds, Unit provides a very simple escrow service that makes sure that they get compensated for their efforts, because certainly fundraising is a big challenge, and a lot of fundraising institutions spend significant amounts of money on well-paid fundraisers, very exotic fundraising exercises and gala dinners and all these types of things. So they've got to spend money to make the money. Well, this is a capacity to add a little shortcut to that and to start to distribute that wealth to individuals that are directly supporting the process in a much more seamless way. So impact token buyers are the people that buy an interest in that particular impact project, be they an individual or a business, have a verifiable record of their participation in an impact project, which is public. They can show to their stakeholders. So whether you're, for instance, a city or an industry project, and so say it's boat, and so you have an interest in the oceans. So the boat token or a token that takes an interest in the oceans can be holding within their token wallet a token for a project that they believe in, and that enables any business to do the same thing, which is completely transparent. The stakeholders can see precisely the projects they're supporting, and they can go to those projects and see precisely the impact that they're making. The impact token buyers can see a record baked into the blockchain of the token's activity. So if you look at a token, so I'm going to make an ocean impact token, and anyone who wants to buy that token can come to my token page, and they can see all the things that I've been doing over time, how I've received funds, and then I report back what I've been doing with those funds, and we can see the growth of the value of those tokens over time as the impact gets increasingly magnified through the work that I'm doing. Most importantly, it gives fundraisers the capacity to easily and transparently receive cryptocurrency. So we all know that the crypto environment is capitalized to the tune of over $2 trillion. And there's very few places for people to put that cryptocurrency, and they're pretty much just trading cryptos. But here's another playground where they can take that and start to make an impact for good. So they can easily access to the large amount of crypto funds around the world. And so we do know that around the world there are crypto whales, and there's only so much money you can spend in a lifetime. And they may not be particularly interested in transferring that money back into fiat to do something good. So now, people that do have crypto have other projects that they can start to deploy their crypto into to make a significant impact. There's a capacity to receive impact tokens with appreciable value over time. So it may be that impact token, say for oceans, as an example, it starts off with maybe like a $10 million valuation. And over time, as I do more and more good works, and people take more of an interest, and there is a genuine interest in seeing the value of those tokens increase, because the more the token goes up in value, the more I'm able to make an impact with that token as the token creator. You have access to a token marketplace, including city and industry tokens, all of whom have some level of impact interest. So whether you live in Sydney or Moscow or Mumbai, every one of those territories has a local impact that they're going to want to make in their city. And so by those city tokens, also holding impact tokens related to their cities, people may take a greater interest in investing into those city tokens or those industry tokens. So what is the power of the impact token itself? So like other industries, like the boat industry, or the fashion industry, or the food industry, we've created an impact token dedicated to impact, to deploy the power of crypto and blockchain to create impact in the world. So for the first time ever, impact investors have the opportunity to invest into impact as an industry and provide liquidity for the circulation of an impact currency for good. So for instance, if I spend $10,000 on buying impact tokens, once those impact tokens are fully subscribed, I may hold on to that impact token for a little while. And as I see the value of that impact token increase, then that value of the impact token, I can then deploy that into a project that I really love. And that initial $10,000 investment that I make may be worth more at the point that I deploy it. So it makes sense to jump on early, even if there isn't a project to directly invest into and get an impact token, because further down the track there will be, and that dollar that you've spent will have an even greater impact further down the track. Impact token buyers can hold their token and watch the value grow and then deploy them into the projects they love when the timing is right. And city and industry tokens can hold impact tokens to deploy into the projects that support their industry or city. So we look at the impact token as an ecosystem. So first we have the NGO tokens, so people that create tokens to make some type of impact, and they're the beneficiaries. So they're the people doing the hard yards on the ground to make an impact in whatever area that they operate. There's city and industry tokens. So every industry has an area of impact that they make and an area of impact that they may want to mitigate. And the same for cities. Cities have an obligation to make their homes more livable for their citizens. And this is a very simple capacity for them to do so. There are impact agency tokens. So I think what we'll see over time is there will be agencies that are developed specifically to support impact projects to tokenize their NGO or tokenize their project. And it'll be those impact agency tokens that will support them in raising money and creating a bigger impact. And then there are companies. So whether I'm Procter & Gamble or Unilever, I have an obligation as per my environmental and social governance commitments to take positions in projects that make a difference that I care about. And companies have the opportunity here to do so in a way that's completely transparent and baked into the blockchain. So we're very excited to introduce it. There's going to be a World Impact Forum on the 27th of November, and we'd really love you to be a part of it. So that'll involve 100 sessions with industry leaders, over 1,000 participants from our community and from your community. And we'd love your support in inviting people in to be a part of that experience and to think about explore the idea of how tokenization can really make a significant impact in the world. So it's very early stages for tokenization, but we believe it has a really positive future. And we'd really like your participation to be a part of the Impact Forum, to be a part of that future. So if you'd like to get involved in the Impact Forum, you can go to the URL here below. So that's www.unitconference.com/world-impact-forum. Or if you'd like to contact me directly to discuss, I'll be supporting the curatorial process that's somewhat crowdsourced. So I'd love to hear what you'd like to do, the contribution you'd like to make. We'd really like to have you on board. If you'd just like to attend, please go to the link and register. And we must remember what our obligations are. And as individuals, the essence of personal happiness is to feel like you've got a sense of purpose in your life. The essence of employee and employer happiness is for the organization to have some sense of purpose beyond making money. And by working together, we really can make an impact. And hopefully in this century, create a sustainable civilization in our lifetimes. So thanks for tuning in. We see a future in which every industry will have their own thriving economy, backed by a treasury of value-generating tokens that represent the value inherent in the community and the economic activities underlying its ecosystem. So please join the Unit Network, join the Impact Forum, and have a look at all the conferences that we're presenting over the coming weeks and months. It's a very exciting time to be a part of the token economy. Thank you very much.